20 years later, a CEO's Inc. reveals a hidden connection to the man who changed her mother's life. The rain fell in steady sheets, drumming against the roof of Sarah Mitchell's childhood home. She stood in the dim attic, surrounded by old boxes bursting with memories. Each dingy cardboard wound tighter around her heart. 20 years had passed since her mother's passing, but the weight of her absence felt heavier than any rainstorm. Today was different, though. Today, she could almost hear her mother's voice whispering, urging her to delve deeper. And buried among the stacks of photos and forgotten trinkets was an envelope, its ink faded yet unmistakably familiar. As she took a deep breath, Sarah opened it, her heart racing. Inside was a letter, her mother's elegant handwriting winding like a ribbon through the years. It spoke of despair and hope, of nights spent worrying over bills while a kind-hearted shopkeeper named James Carter helped bridge their family from the brink of disaster. Her heart swelled with unexpected pride, recalling the man who had extended kindness when her mother had needed it most. Memories flooded back like tidal waves. James's warm smile, the way he'd always greet them at the door of his little shop, slipping in bread and milk when they couldn't afford groceries. He became a lifeline, a guiding star in the darkest nights of their lives. She longed to connect the dots, to say thank you in a way that honored the sacrifices both he and her mother had made. With a firm resolve, she decided to launch an initiative aimed at uplifting local businesses just like his. But the storm wasn't merely falling outside. No, it brewed around her as shadows of corporate giants loomed. Ruthless rivals eager to sink their claws in, ready to crush community-driven efforts. They were the embodiment of everything her mother had resisted, a relentless tide of greed that threatened to erase the small, heartfelt actions of people like James. The spirit of her mother swirled in her chest, fueling her fire, guiding her through the currents. Yet, as she rolled out her ambitious plans, the cruel irony struck like a bolt of lightning. In her haste to raise up the local vendors, her initiatives put James's shop in danger. No. Sarah's heart twisted, feeling a betrayal to the very principles her mother had taught her. She was caught in a storm of her own making, a battle between ambition and the responsibility of community. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the hardships she'd witnessed as a child looming in her mind, she rallied her community. The day came when locals showed up in droves, not just for James's shop but for each other, their stories mingling in the rain-soaked streets, burying the loathsome grasp of corporate ambition under small-town grit. Sarah felt her mother standing beside her, the ink from that letter now pulsating with newfound purpose. But knew this wasn't just about saving a shop or staving off corporate greed. It was about defining a legacy woven tightly with the fabric of community. And as the storm rumbled above, she couldn't help but wonder, would the ties of her mother's teachings hold strong, or would it splinter her dreams, leaving her in the downpour? As she looked out over the faces of her neighbors, hope flickered, yet the uncertainty swirled just as thick as the rain around her. Would they rise together, or would they be washed away? The morning after the rain, the world felt washed clean yet heavy with anticipation. Sarah stood on the balcony of her office, staring down at the vibrant streets adorned with local vendors. Merchants set up their tents, displaying everything from handmade crafts to fresh produce. The community was alive, but so was the tension brewing in the air. She could almost taste it, like the damp remnants of the storm clinging to the solid ground. Her phone buzzed insistently on the table, pulling her back into the weight of her responsibilities. It was a text from an old colleague, Mark, whose calculated mannerism always shadowed Sarah right from her corporate beginnings. Heard about your initiative. I hope you're ready for the backlash, it read. Mark's impossible need to control the narrative prickled at her skin. She couldn't let fear dictate her direction. With determination, she stepped inside her office and gathered the team. An assortment of faces looked back at her, some hopeful, others doubtful. They were passionate about the cause, but looming challenges had started to kindle their uncertainty. I know there are fears about going up against big corporations, she started, her voice steady. But together, we can show that community means more than competition. Eyes brightened slightly as she shared her ideas on collaborative marketing efforts. Designing an initiative where locals banded together to promote one another, the way they once did before corporate greed crept in. An idea birthed from whispers of her mother's past. Moments later, the team was ablaze with excitement, tossing around new ideas, old memories, and stories that wound into the fabric of their town. But as Sarah left that meeting, her heart ached for James. His shop had been a beacon of hope, and the thought of his struggles rippled through her thoughts. If her plans jeopardized him, what did that mean for all the values her mother instilled in her? That night, she found herself in James's quaint little shop, scanning the shelves laden with products. The smell of fresh bread and the soft murmur of radio music felt like home, yet the heartache of uncertainty loomed. She approached the counter and, after a moment, James looked up, his kind smile brightening, yet with a hint of worry in his eyes. "Sarah," he greeted, his voice warm but slightly wavering. "What brings you back?" "I came to see how you're doing." "I've been thinking a lot about what you did for my mom," she admitted, words spilling forth like a fragile dam breaking. "We need you. The community is rallying, but I don't want to hurt your shop in the process." For a moment, he stared at her, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening as he bore witness to her turmoil. "Healing a community requires sacrifice, Sarah, but it shouldn't come at the cost of anyone's livelihood." Tears pricked her eyes. "I don't know how to carry both at all at once. What if I fail?" James leaned closer, his voice steady as always. "Hope is a fragile thing, but it grows strongest in the shadows of despair. If we lift each other, we rise together. Remember this, you create the narrative now." As she left, his words echoing in her mind, she could feel the weight of destiny. In that moment, with the rain finally abated, Sarah knew she had a decision to make. Would she challenge the corporate tide and keep the heart of the community intact, or would she let the current pull her under? She stood at the precipice of change, her spirit burning fiercely as she grasped the thread of hope deep within. But in the depths of her thoughts, a worrying question lingered: would the bond of her mother's legacy withstand the trials ahead, or would it falter when they needed it most? The answer lay in the days to come. The next morning, Sarah awoke to the sun streaming through her window, warming her skin as if coaxing her into action. The birds chirped outside like enthusiastic advocates for a fresh start. Yet, as she brewed her coffee, the comforting aroma did little to calm the storm brewing inside her. The doubts from the night before clung to her like a heavy quilt. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a group message from her team showing enthusiasm for meeting with local businesses to promote their new collaborative initiative. A wave of warmth washed over her, a reminder that she wasn't alone. She took a deep breath, the cool air filling her lungs and igniting her resolve. Today would be pivotal. Arriving at the community center, she was greeted by a flurry of familiar faces. The energy was electric, each person buzzing with energy and ideas, the weight of uncertainty beginning to lift. They were here, ready to reclaim their community. "Listen up," Sarah called out, gathering everyone's attention. She could see the expressions of anticipation mingled with trepidation. "Our goal is clear. We're not just promoting our businesses, we're building a family. The heart of this town beats within each of us." As she spoke, her eyes landed on familiar faces: the baker from 2 blocks down, the florist with the wild bouquets, the indie bookstore owner with stories woven into their every shelf. Each of them had a story that embodied the spirit of the town she cherished. They split into small discussion groups, bouncing ideas off one another, sharing strategies on how to best uplift each other's businesses. Laughter echoed through the walls, replacing the tension that had filled her heart just hours ago. It felt right, but even amidst the bubbling excitement, a shadow of doubt lingered. What if the small steps they took with local marketing were nothing compared to what the corporations could unleash? Mark's words crawled back into her thoughts, weaving a gnawing tension through her mind. By the end of the meeting, the team had spent hours refining the initiative, all transformed from doubt to a united front until Sarah noticed an unease settle over them again. The chatter dimmed, and silence gripped the room. "Hey, what's on your mind? She asked, her heart sinking as deflated expressions danced across their faces. One of the newer members, Jenna, spoke up. What about the backlash? What if we're just hitting a brick wall? I can't shake the feeling that we're stirring the pot for no reason. Be brave, Jenna, Sarah said, her voice steady. Yes, we are taking a risk, but every movement starts somewhere. Look around. Feel this energy. It's us together, and that makes a difference. They all nodded, a flicker of hope dancing in their eyes. And just like that, Sarah felt the connection among them grow stronger. They had set themselves on a course, but the nagging thought of James and his shop hung in her mind like a storm cloud, his fate intertwined with her plans. When she approached him that evening, the worn staircase leading to his shop felt like a trek through her own anxieties. Each step was heavy with fear. The pressure of affecting his business sent tendrils of guilt curling around her heart. Sarah, back again? He smiled, the warmth radiating from him. But the worry in his eyes mirrored her own. James, we're moving forward with the initiative, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I want to make this work for everyone, you included. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. I've seen this cycle before, trust me. Corporations don't care about the heart of the matter. It's always about profit. Are you prepared for that? Her heart raced. Could she truly carry this on her shoulders? I believe we can fight back, she insisted, though she felt a hint of doubt in her words. James didn't respond immediately. He seemed to measure her resolve. Then do it, Sarah. Just remember it isn't just about the businesses. It's the people they serve. Don't lose sight of that. As she left, the question echoed louder in her mind. Would the unity she dreamed of hold firm against the looming giants, or would their hopes crumble under the weight of corporate indifference? The answer lay ahead, but the stakes had never felt higher. In the fabric of her city, a string was being pulled. But who would truly feel the brunt of the change? The thought ignited a fierce determination in her heart. But deep down, a chilling realization clawed at her mind. What sacrifices would she need to face for this community to truly thrive? And as the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows lengthened, mirroring their doubts as they faced what lay ahead. The next day dawned with a fierce determination brewing alongside the coffee that bubbled in Sarah's kitchen. She glanced out the window to see the world waking around her. The streets were dotted with early morning joggers and parents hustling their kids to school, all unaware of the storm that loomed ahead for their community. With a deep breath, Sarah steeled her nerves. The community center buzzed with life once again as the group gathered for their follow-up meeting. This time, Sarah could sense an underlying urgency, as though the wind itself carried unspoken concerns. She stood before her team, a mixture of familiar faces and new allies, and each looked to her for strength. All right, everyone, she said, her voice firm. We've all felt the challenges lurking at our door. I won't pretend that fear isn't valid. But remember why we're here. We're not just fighting for our businesses. We're championing for our community, for our neighbors. All of us. A few heads nodded, but worry still laced the air. Jenna shifted anxiously, her hands fidgeting as she whispered to a friend beside her. Sarah caught their exchange, and it stung. She wanted to shield them from the anxiety, but tried to reflect her assurance instead. Let us revisit our strategy, she suggested. Who here can name one local business that truly inspires them? Slowly, hands began to rise, hesitant at first. The florist shared her vision of a spring festival. The bookstore owner chimed in about hosting poetry nights to foster connections. As they exchanged ideas, Sarah felt hope sprouting around her like freshly watered plants, and yet, a whisper in the back of her mind reminded her of the growing threat they faced. Corporations were already sowing seeds of doubt within town, dangling promises and discounts. How could a festival compete against that? The meeting wrapped up on a note of hopeful resilience, yet as Sarah left, the weight remained heavy on her shoulders. She drove home slowly, thoughts churning. Glancing at the gas station, she spotted a new billboard advertising a competing line of stores about to come into town. The colors were bright, the tagline enticing. It made her stomach churn. That evening, Sarah found herself pacing the living room, her heart racing. She needed a plan, something bold that would rally the community. But what? Ideas flooded her mind, textures and voices blending into a chaotic symphony. Her phone buzzed again. It was a text from James. "Can we talk?" They met at the cafe, where the sweet scent of fresh pastries mingled with tension. James was already there, his brow furrowed. "I'm worried," he admitted before she could speak. "These corporations are organized, and their push will only get stronger. We need to counter them with something big, something they can't ignore." The conversation morphed into a collaborative discussion. They listed brainstorming ideas on napkins to stave off the impending threat. Maybe a concert? A charity event to support local services? Something that would stretch beyond businesses and pull on the heartstrings of the residents. As they plotted and planned, Sarah felt the initial flicker of hope rekindle into a bright flame. But between their laughter, a simmering tension remained. How far were they willing to go? What sacrifices would they face if they chose to go against the massive tide? "Whatever we decide, we must remain united, Sarah," James said, the sincerity in his tone capturing her completely. "If we fracture, we might as well give up now." Later that night, as she stared out her window at the sparkling stars, the question hung in the air: how far would she push for their community? What if unity wasn't enough? With these thoughts gnawing at her heart, she picked up her phone again. She had one more message to send, a call to action for all their supporters. Tomorrow had to be a turning point, and she was ready for the fight ahead, but her eyes remained heavy with worry. Would her resolve hold in the face of overwhelming odds, or would they find themselves deeper in the darkness than they had ever imagined? The following morning, Sarah awoke to an electric energy coursing through her veins. It was as if the universe knew today was important, a pivot point for her community. She dressed quickly, her mind racing through the plans she'd laid out in her dreams, visions of colorful banners, laughter, and a thriving crowd, all coming together to celebrate something larger than themselves. At the community center, the anticipation was palpable. More people had shown up than she had anticipated, filling the room with chatter and hope. Faces she had recognized from the days of selling goods at the market now looked back at her with a shared determination. It was invigorating. She stepped onto the makeshift stage, her heart pounding with excitement and a hint of dread. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady but her hands shaking slightly. "Today is not just about survival. It's about bringing our spirit back and reminding everyone how strong we are together." The crowd responded with encouraging nods and murmurs of agreement. Someone shouted, "We need a name for our event." And the room erupted into a brainstorming session. Ideas flew around: Unity Day, our town celebrations, revive the heart of Main Street. Each suggestion felt like a stepping stone, a way to anchor their resolve against the looming threat. Amidst the excitement, Sarah noticed Jenna again, but this time, the young woman had her phone out, taking notes. Seeing her engaged sparked a warmth in Sarah's chest. Jenna was, after all, a heart of this community, someone who could reach out to the youth. She beckoned Jenna up to the front. "Can you rally your friends? Social media is a powerful tool we need to use." "They spread the word," Sarah urged. "On it." Jenna replied, enthusiasm lighting up her face. As the day went on, each member took on a role, organizing vendors, crafting advertisements, and galvanizing their networks. Sarah ran around from one group to another, her heart swelling with joy. She marveled at how the mundane tasks of her days suddenly felt elevating. But in the depths of her mind, the fear gnawed at her. What if their efforts fell flat? What if corporate forces overwhelmed them? The thought loomed, threatening to steal the joy from the moment. As she led a planning session, her thoughts shifted to James. He had become a true partner in this cause. In the whirlwind of the day, she hadn't seen him since the cafe. When she finally stepped outside for a breather, there he was, leaning against a lamp post, arms crossed, an encouraging smile on his face. Her heart skipped a beat. "I thought you were busy," she said, her breath catching slightly. I couldn't miss this, he replied. You're at the helm, and it's inspiring to watch. Just wanted to see if you needed support. Tension released in her chest. I do. Every bit of support matters. They stood together, watching the jubilant crowd that had gathered to plan. Hope seeped into their words as they discussed strategies. But beneath it all, something felt unresolved, as if a cloud shadowed their day. As dusk began to settle, Sarah noticed a hush falling over the crowd. People were turning their heads, eyes drawn to something in the distance. When she followed their gaze, her heart dropped. An army of delivery trucks was approaching, advertising for the new corporate store. The moment felt like a punch in the gut. Sarah froze as the trucks, adorned with bright colors and flashy logos, rolled into town. They were here early. Her plans were already being undermined, her vision flickering like a candle in the wind. What now? She whispered under her breath, anxiety creeping back. James placed his hand on her shoulder, an anchor amidst the chaos. We fight. Show them what we can do. This isn't over yet. But the doubts weighed heavier than ever. Would their spirit be enough to counter this display of corporate might? As a deep breath escaped her, one thing became clear: they had to act fast. Would they rise to the occasion or see everything they built come crashing down around them? The possibility of a harder fight loomed before her. While she had the community's heart, would it be enough against the cold machinery of a corporation? Sarah swallowed hard, knowing that tomorrow held challenges they hadn't anticipated. The fight for their community was just beginning. The next morning greeted Sarah with a heavy sky, clouds thick with uncertainty mirroring her feelings. As she prepared for the day, her mind was a whirlpool of thoughts, strategies, concerns, and the looming presence of those delivery trucks. She recalled the shared energy from the day before, but now, it felt distant. Doubt tugged at her insides. After a quick breakfast, she headed to the community center, her steps slow and hesitant. Would anyone still be inspired after yesterday's shock? When she arrived, the scene that awaited her was mixed. It wasn't filled with defeated faces, but rather determined whispers and exchanged ideas. Sarah. Over here. Jenna called, waving her arms frantically as if she could gather everyone's attention like a conductor. Sarah felt a flicker of hope. She pushed through the crowd, and as she approached, she could see the excitement in Jenna's eyes. Look at this. Jenna pointed at a whiteboard plastered with ideas and sketches. They were already brainstorming ways to counter the corporate threat. What's this? Sarah asked, her curiosity piqued. A campaign. We need to highlight the history of our community, the stories that make us unique. It appealed to people yesterday, so why not capitalize on it? Jenna's enthusiasm was contagious. Sarah smiled, her heart swelling as inspiration began to fill the spaces where her doubt had lingered. Jenna was right, their town was more than just a series of storefronts and facades. It was history, blood, sweat, and heart. We showcased the local businesses and the people behind them. Let us invite everyone to share their stories, and we can create a narrative that resonates. Sarah said, her voice lifting with each word. Just then, James joined the group, eyebrows raised. I heard about the idea for stories, and it's brilliant. But we also need a direct plan to counter those trucks. They'll be opening soon. We have to get the word out. The conversation picked up speed. Ideas bounced back and forth, building momentum. Posters. Flyers. Community meetings. Social media drives. Each suggestion lit the small team up, fueling their fight against the encroaching corporation. Sarah's heart began to beat in rhythm with the spirit around her, but then Sarah's phone buzzed, pulling her focus. She glanced at the screen. One of her old colleagues from a chain store had sent a message. Curious about your plans. I can get the inside scoop. That gave her pause. The need to know what the corporation was planning was tempting, but it felt like a betrayal to the very values they were fighting for. Should she reach out, or was it safer to keep the integrity of their efforts intact? Everything okay? James asked, picking up on her hesitation. It's just an old coworker. They might have information about the new store, she replied, uncertainty bubbling inside her. What if this was a chance to gain an edge? What do you think? Jenna asked, tilting her head, genuinely interested. As Sarah weighed her options, she saw the faces of her community in her mind. Would they understand if she gathered intel through corporate channels? Or would they see it as crossing a line? A decision loomed, one that could affect their entire campaign. What was more important, the potential advantage or staying true to her principles? I need to think about it, Sarah said, her voice low. As the group exchanged ideas, that weight in her chest returned. Would her resolve crack under the pressure? The questions turned softer but more urgent. Could she lead them without losing sight of herself? In that moment, she realized that the true battle was not just against the trucks, but within her heart. Coupled with the corporate fight, a new layer was forming inside her, one that would test her more than she had anticipated. The road ahead looked daunting. Would she make the right choice for herself and the community she loved? Just then, as if answering her tangled thoughts, a rumor began to spread through the crowd. Someone had seen figures amassing outside the new store, and they didn't appear friendly. What were they? Planning? A protest? Confrontation? Sarah felt the room shift as tension rippled through the air. The stakes had suddenly escalated, taking their efforts from planning to outright conflict. Let us go see. James urged. With a shared, charged glance, they moved as one, stepping toward an uncertain future that could change everything they had been working for. As they reached the doors, Sarah held her breath, the threshold between hope and fear crackling in the air. What awaited them on the other side? With a shaky breath, Sarah pushed the door open. The sudden rush of fresh air filled her lungs, but her chest felt tight. Through the glass, she spotted a small throng gathered in front of the new store, whispering urgently as their shadows danced in the early sunlight. The sight was unsettling. Community members stood shoulder to shoulder, faces scrunched in determination or lined with worry. She could hear snippets of conversations, rising and falling like waves. Did you hear? They've got security. One woman exclaimed, her voice cutting through the noise. I heard they're planning to intimidate anyone who speaks up, another man replied, fists clenched at his sides. Sarah's group squeezed through the crowd, urgency igniting their every movement. Jenna's grip on Sarah's arm was firm, a silent promise of solidarity despite the fear creeping across her features. Stay together, James instructed, voice steady, yet his eyes flickered with concern for what lay ahead. As they approached the store, the enormous, gleaming facade cast menacing shadows over the street. The trucks parked out front, huge and permanent looking, seemed to mock the vibrant spirit of their community. On the far side of the gathering, Sarah noticed a figure tall, imposing, and clad in a suit. A clear sign of authority amidst the protesters, his gaze scanning the crowd with a mix of disdain and amusement. This presence sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Who is that? Jenna murmured, peering at Sarah, who was trying to make sense of the scene. I don't know, but they look like they mean business, Sarah replied, her voice tight. Just then, a loud voice cut through the murmurs. We will not stand by while you flood our streets with your corporate greed. A local activist stepped forward, rallying the crowd. The energy shifted in an instant, morphing from anxious whispers to shouts of defiance. The activist's passion ignited something deep inside Sarah. She could feel her heart beat louder, and suddenly, she knew they couldn't just wait around. They had to speak up, to confront that shadow of authority together. Let us join them, she urged, stepping forward. James and Jenna exchanged quick, determined glances before following. They pushed through the small crowd, joining the other voices rising against the corporate takeover. But just as Sarah found her rhythm in the surge of protest, her phone buzzed again, a stark interruption. Glancing down, she felt a rush of confusion. It was a video from her colleague, the one she had debated reaching out to. With a pounding heart, she tapped the screen. A short clip played, showing employees being briefed inside the new store, on tactics for dealing with opposition. Words like intimidation and containment flared across the screen, making her blood run cold. "I don't like this," Jenna whispered, the urgency returning like a distant echo. "Do we need to warn them?" Sarah's gut twisted. This was what they had feared, what they were up against. The reality sank in. Their fight wasn't just for local pride, it was for safety. "I don't know," Sarah said, eyes wide. It feels wrong to use this, but she could feel the weight of the moment. She had a choice to make: use the inside information, turn the tide in their favor, or guard her integrity despite the risk. The breath of the crowd enveloped her, and in that charged atmosphere, the stakes lifted. Sarah glanced at her friends, sensing their tension as they awaited her decision. Suddenly, someone stepped up and grabbed the microphone, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. "Let us show them we won to be silenced," they shouted, raising fists in solidarity. Sarah's heart raced. This was their moment, but would she take her gut instinct or follow the chance her old colleague dangled in front of her, a secret weapon in the fight? "Let us make sure they know we're here," she finally said, deciding to stand strong with the group beside her. But even as the words left her mouth, doubt gnawed at her. Was she avoiding the information that could turn the tide? The crowd roared back, their voices uniting in a powerful crescendo, but in the depths of her mind, Sarah still wrestled. Would she regret not seizing the opportunity when she had the chance? Suddenly, the figure in the suit flicked his gaze toward her and their eyes locked. Something electric passed between them, a challenge that echoed through the chaos. What was his next move? And more pressingly, what would hers be? A surge of adrenaline coursed through Sarah as the figure in the suit continued to stare at her. It was as if he could see right through the layers of uncertainty that wrapped around her. The murmurs and chants faded into the background. All she could hear was the erratic thump of her heart. "What do we do now?" Jenna asked, her voice barely breaking through the tension that seemed to cling to the air like fog. "Keep pushing forward," Sarah said, still keeping her eyes locked on the stranger. He held a power, but so did they. The growl of the crowd provided a rhythm, a steady pulse that urged her on, emboldening her decision. "Right," James said, nodding toward the microphone, where the previous speaker had stepped aside. "Let us keep building this momentum." Gathering her breath, Sarah took a step towards the front where the microphone stood. The vibrations of the crowd stirred her to action. She felt the energy of the people behind her and recognized an unspoken bond. They were all here for the same reason, to stand against injustice, to defend their community. "Listen up," she shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony. Faces turned toward her, eyes wide, hanging on her words. "We are here to protect our home. We will not let corporate greed tear us apart." The crowd erupted in applause and cheers, a wave of sound that sent more adrenaline rushing through her veins. As they roared in support, Sarah felt the knot in her stomach begin to unravel. Perhaps there was power in facing the fear head-on. She noticed Jenna and James break through the throng and join her, their faces lit with determination. Their presence reminded her just how much support they had from each other, a flicker of hope igniting in her heart. Yet, the man in the suit remained still, watching. He didn't flinch at their defiance, nor did he smile. Instead, his gaze hardened, a mixture of annoyance and intrigue. Suddenly, another voice boomed from the back of the crowd, an older woman, fierce and unwavering. "This is not just about business. This is about our families. Our children. Our chance to thrive." Sarah's eyes flicked to the crowd's reactions. Heads nodded, fists thrust upward, and cries of "yeah" echoed through the street. There was a fire in the air, palpable and real. It felt like they were waking a sleeping giant, and the thought sent shivers down Sarah's spine. But then, uncertainty crept back in. What would happen next? Would they be met with resistance or actual change? She glanced at the figure again, who seemed to hold an unshakable confidence. What would he do? And more importantly, what was his link to their suffering? In that moment, Sarah realized it wasn't just about her community. It was also about the choices they would make next. They could play safe. Or they could stand up for a cause that mattered. "Let us not just react," she suggested, stepping back from the microphone. We need a plan. We can't let them manipulate us. We need to turn this energy into action. Let us take our concerns directly to the people who matter. The crowd buzzed to life with ideas and shouts of agreement. Some wanted to speak directly with the city officials, others suggested organizing more protests. Sarah felt a swell of pride. They were brainstorming how to harness their anger and passion into something constructive, but the man in the suit shifted, and suddenly he stepped forward, a smirk curling his lips. The crowd quieted down, tension thickening the air. "What is this?" he began, his voice calm and measured. "A grassroots uprising? How naive. You think shouting will change anything?" The crack in Sarah's confidence widened. Was he right? Would all this noise be nothing against the reality they faced? "Think about it," he continued, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "You're all just a fleeting moment in my business plan." A deafening silence fell, and for a moment, Sarah felt the weight of defeat creep in. Her heart sank. But in the depths of the hush, a new voice broke through the boldness from the crowd flickered back. "The fight wasn't over yet. Together, we're stronger," Sarah cried, challenging the man with her gaze. He raised an eyebrow, then laughed lightly, a sound that sent chills down her spine as it echoed in the stillness. "Let us see how far that conviction takes you." Now Sarah felt the stakes rise. This wouldn't just be a protest, it would be a battle against something larger than herself, the unraveling of a new chapter in her life. What would be their next move against such a formidable opponent? And what secrets lay behind the man's confident facade? The crowd shifted restlessly, confusion hanging in the air like thick fog. Sarah's heart raced as she looked around, taking in the faces of her neighbors. Each one was filled with a mix of defiance and fear. The man in the suit, with his cynical smile, felt like a dark cloud pressing down over them, shattering the hope they had just ignited. "Listen," she shouted, an urgency seeping into her voice. "We can't let fear hold us back. Look at us. We're still here, standing together, ready to fight for what we believe in." Jenna stepped forward, tentatively raising her hand. "Let us organize a rally. We can spread the word, get the community involved. People need to know what is going on before they tear everything apart." "Yes," James added, pumping his fist. "If we can show them we're united, we might just have a chance." Sarah felt a spark ignite among the crowd again. Heads nodded in agreement, and the murmurs grew louder, a wave of enthusiasm spreading like wildfire. This was no longer just a protest or an emotional outburst, it was the foundation of something greater. She stepped closer to the microphone and said, "We'll set up a meeting. A town hall where everyone can voice their concerns. Let us invite the media, write letters, go door to door. We need to gather everyone's stories and create a united front against the greed that threatens us." The faces in the crowd once again lit up. She saw the glisten of hope returning, igniting the fire within them. A woman close to the front yelled, "And let us not forget social media. We can reach even more people that way." "Yes," Sarah replied, her excitement contagious. Hashtag it. Let us call it Stand Together. We can go viral." The crowd buzzed with the energy of shared purpose. They began exchanging ideas, the mood lifting as plans took shape. Sarah's shoulders relaxed as she reveled in the newfound camaraderie. For the first time, she could feel the collective strength that came from unity, but the man in the suit stepped forward again, the smile gone from his face. "All of this, it's entertaining. But you're fighting a battle you can't win," he said, his voice low and controlled. "What if I told you that every effort you make will be met with a wall of resistance? You don't know what you're up against." In the crowd, a ripple of uncertainty surfaced once more. Sarah felt her stomach twist. What if he was right? But as she glanced at the determined faces surrounding her, doubt began to resolve into determination. They were resilient. They had each other. "We're not scared of walls," she shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. "We'll climb over, smash through, or dig under. Together, we can do anything." The echo of her words charged the crowd. They roared with agreement, fueled by the conviction that this was their moment. But deep down, Sarah recognized that a battle loomed ahead. The man might underestimate them, but she knew they were entering uncharted territory. As the gathering began to disperse, Sarah felt a sense of purpose solidify within her. There would be battles yet to face, and increasingly, it felt like there was more at stake than just their community. There were hidden connections, secrets binding the stranger to her past, and her mother's legacy that had yet to unfold. Tomorrow. Let us meet here again, same time. She called out, heart hammering with resolve. As the crowd broke into chatter and applause around her, Sarah caught the man's eye for one last moment. This time, it was not with fear, but a fierce sense of defiance. The air crackled with anticipation, each pulse of energy a reminder of what they were fighting for. Later that evening, tucked away in her room, Sarah rifled through her mother's old documents. She stumbled upon a faded envelope wedged between two books, her heart racing as she opened it. Inside lay a letter, handwritten, different from anything she had ever seen. The words danced before her eyes, leading her down a path she never expected. They hinted at connections and decisions made long ago, choices that had woven their lives together without her realizing it. And just like that, the stakes grew higher. What revelation would this letter unveil? Would it change everything Sarah thought she knew about her past? The answers awaited her, but finding them would become the next challenge. Would she be able to uncover the truth about the man in the suit and the impact he had on her mother's life? The sun peeked through the curtains, bathing Sarah in a warm embrace. A sense of urgency propelled her from bed. The letter she'd found last night felt heavy in her mind, its contents promising to unravel the very fabric of her past. She needed answers that could illuminate the hidden connection between the man in the suit and her mother, and, perhaps, shed light on this movement they were forging together. Eagerly, she pored over the letter, her heart racing as she deciphered each line. The words spoke of a complicated history involving her mother and James, a partnership that had once flourished, overshadowed by circumstances neither had anticipated. Sarah's breath hitched. This was more than just a shared history, it was a legacy woven into the very community she fought to protect. The man in the suit wasn't just an opponent, he was a fracture in a story that stretched deep into Sarah's roots. With renewed purpose, Sarah set out to meet James and Jenna. The community center buzzed as people gathered, each face reflecting determination, anxiety, and hope. As Sarah stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. Today was crucial. Thank you all for being here, she began. Our fight is about more than just saving our businesses, it's about reclaiming the heart of our community, the legacy of our families, and our shared history. She paused, the weight of the moment shushing murmurs. I've uncovered something that connects us all, something about the man we're up against. Gasps rippled through the crowd, sparking curiosity and concern. She continued, his ties run deeper than we realized. My mother, who raised me with the values of kindness and community, had a history with him, a bond that once worked to support those in need, before greed swallowed it whole. The crowd shifted, the energy palpable, as Sarah recounted the memories unearthed from the letter. This isn't just a fight against a corporation, it's a battle against the darker parts of our past that threaten to resurface. If we can unite in our shared stories, we become indomitable. A roar of agreement erupted, shaking the walls with the heartbeat of a community rising together. Jenna stepped forward, her voice vibrant. Let us document our stories. We'll gather testimonials, photos, everything that encapsulates the spirit of this town. Let us show them our strength. It's not just our businesses at stake, it's our identity. James nodded vigorously, and let us approach local media. A well-timed story could ignite a fire. We need to give them something they can't ignore. The crowd erupted into a flurry of plans, voices rising in passionate determination. Sarah felt a surge of energy and warmth wash over her. They weren't merely protesting anymore, they were revolutionizing their narrative, ready to stand tall against the threats looming over them. Days rolled into action-packed weeks where Sarah's strategy bore fruit. Their stories, their voices echoed in newspapers, social media, and community events. Local businesses thrived within their interwoven tapestry, while the threat of the corporation dulled against the brilliance of unity, the closer they got to their rally, the more Sarah could almost feel the spirit of her mother urging her onward. This was her mother's legacy, this connection of kindness and community. But the man in the suit would soon respond, and they braced for his confrontation. Finally, on the day of the rally, the streets filled with colorful banners, laughter, and families gathering like never before. A palpable energy surged through the air, shifting anticipation into movement. As Sarah addressed the crowd, she felt lightning bolting through her veins, igniting passion and determination all around her. Suddenly, at the edge of the crowd, there he was. The man in the suit, standing still, observing. His expression was eerily calm, like a predator sizing up its prey. "I'm here to remind you all that your efforts are futile," he said, stepping forward. "You think you can win with a few stories and heartfelt speeches? This is a game of numbers. And I have the upper hand." Sarah felt the anger swelling within her, but her voice remained steady. "This isn't just about business, and you know it. It's about our lives, our families, the real connections we forge each day. Your greed may bring temporary gain, but all you'll find here are feet planted firmly, side by side." His confident facade cracked for just a moment, revealing the glimpse of concern beneath. But he quickly regained composure and laughed condescendingly. "Shall we see what your unity can do against an industry built on power?" "Yes," rang back the collective voice of the crowd. The energy bolstered her, reminding her of why this mattered. It was a moment of truth, not just about retaining businesses, but reclaiming dignity, memory, and future. As she faced the man, ready for the battle to ensue, she saw not just the rivalry born out of corporate ambitions, but a chance to heal the fractures of the past, just as her mother had once done all those years ago. "Together, we can and will keep our story alive," she asserted. The crowd surged behind her in a wave of conviction, their unity magnified. Today wasn't just a strike against the corporation, it was a celebration of everything that connected them as a community, and as the banners fluttered in the wind, and laughter mingled with determination, Sarah knew one thing was for sure: this was the moment history remembered. Was it merely a battle they faced? Or a transformation waiting to unfold, uniting not just an initiative, but generations? "Let us do this," she cried, as the crowd erupted in a cheer that pierced the clouds above, a call to action, a promise to honor their ties, and celebrate what it truly meant to be family. But this was just the beginning. Let this momentum thrust them into a future brightened by the strength of their past. Now, as you become part of this incredible journey, I urge you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Take part in this movement. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, your voice matters. And share instantly this message with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. It's time for our story to spread. You need to support this community, this fight for hope and unity. Don't wait not even one more second to share.